Peace and blessings, everybody. This is Miss Allison Denise, and you guys are tuned in to Soul Sunday with me and Ruby. And tonight we are discussing the mentality of relationships. So I'm excited. I cannot wait for us to get started. I am just waiting for my sister Ruby to come on so that we can invite her and get up here and get this started. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you've had a great weekend. I hope you've had a lot of great stuff happen, and I hope that you're getting prepared for the coming week. What's up, Chris? I see you up there. Hey, Amber, how are you? And here is Ruby right here. Let me go ahead and get her on. Come on. I just okay. Let me do it this way. Bring them on camera and add. Never happened. Okay. We see you guys coming on. What's up, Pierre? What's up, Joe? And is she here? Is she here? What's up, Fletcher? Hey, she is here. That was so quick. Oh my God.
Oh, Facebook is on it.
That
I
was
think,
so quick.
right. I think what it is because Facebook and Instagram, I seen some changes on Facebook and Instagram, and I'm like, wait a minute. That I think how they do. But I'm here, and
Yes, I
we
do.
didn't have
I
no
do.
problems. Hey,
Hi.
everybody.
What's
So,
up? Well, I'm gonna let you go ahead and introduce yourself before we get started, and then I'll do me.
hey. Well, thanks again, sis, for allowing me to take over your timeline for a minute for the live, because mine is still messed up. But welcome
No
everybody
problem at
to
all.
Soul Sunday with Ruby and Allison. And tonight we are discussing the mentality of relationships. This is like the sequel because, of course, if you were on my timeline earlier for Soul Therapy, oh, these Facebook
Did you forget
notifications.
those notifications?
And Nubia Soul Goddess talked about the mentality of relationships earlier. So I was like, you know
Hmm.
what? I could not talk about this with Allison, Miss Relationship expert over here, because I know she got a lot that she want to add in. So we're gonna get right into
Oh
it.
my
But Ruby,
God.
I am Ruby D, the Goddess Entrepreneur, Soul Speaker, your energy therapist, and author of the Goddess Grind book series. And yeah, I do all kind of stuff.
Yes, you do.
Okay, let Allison introduce herself.
What's up, everybody? Peace and blessings. I am Miss Allison Denise Love and personal finance coach, speaker, writer, blogger, podcaster, 1/5 of the Bad Squad radio show. Overall, just a grown ass woman teaching grown ass people how to do grown ass things in their life and in their relationships. So we thank you guys so much for tuning in. Shout out to those of you who are coming on. What's up, Kenneth? What's up, Dwayne? Hey, Miss D, Arthur, Lisa, all of you guys who are coming from the Be Still and Move and the Allison Denise side. Truly appreciate it. I really appreciate you guys taking a few minutes with us. So I'm going to turn this over to my sister here so we can get started on this topic.
Yes. So, of course, with the topic, it's called the mentality of relationships. And of course, me and Allison are always talking about self-love, relationships, mental health and wellness and all of that good stuff. And I was like, wait a minute, we need to talk about this and relationships. And
Mm-hmm.
of course, we all know we have been on those dates and oh, we had such a nice time. We talked about this and we enjoyed ourselves. And then y'all start dating and hanging out. And then you get a few months
Mm-hmm.
in, a year or so in. That dude crazy. Man, she's crazy. Man, I don't know what's wrong with that girl. But it's just like, but on that first date, you didn't bother to ask about mental health and wellness, about emotional health and wellness. Like, really, how important is that to you if you didn't even think to talk about it? And I think that it's very important that we talk about this particular thing on the first date. If you can talk about how much money somebody making, what kind of car they got, how many kids they got, y'all talking about sex on the first date, y'all can talk about whatever they got going on mentally, emotionally, and whatnot, because you never know how it's going to affect you down the line, and then you in a situation that you really can't get out of because now y'all are married, y'all got kids together and all this other stuff. Yes, first date. And I'm not saying first date like, oh, we met yesterday and we going on a date this weekend. No, first date, some
Okay.
Like actually talk for weeks and for months before actually going out on a first date. And it's just like,
Okay.
yeah, first date, you can have this conversation. Sometimes you might have to bring it up subtle, but I mean, I'm the type of person on the first date, I don't want to talk about no shallow stuff. I need to get down, into it, because if we on the first date, then that means I see you in a different light than just some random person. So I'm gonna
Right,
stop there and
right.
I'm gonna go ahead and let Allison chime in.
All right, so I'm gonna say I am really glad that Ruby made that clarification, because I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna add to this, because I ain't asking nobody nothing like that on the first date, but I know what first date you talking about now.
Yes.
I was like, wait a minute, what? Okay, but okay, so now that I see where my sister's coming from, yeah, this is really important, y'all. Now, yeah, it's very easy to, like she mentioned, it's really easy to talk about sex. It's really easy to talk about likes and dislikes. I'm a person that actually hates. I hate the dating process. I hate, well, the traditional dating process. I hate the first dates. I hate the tell me about yourselves and what do you do for, I hate all that stuff. I just don't like it. And so the reason that I think that this is so important is because, as Ruby mentioned, based off of the type of first date that she's talking about, you have already established a rapport. You have already established um, that you have an interest, and he or she has an interest. And so after establishing that rapport, there should be enough of a level of comfort there where you can go ahead and begin to talk about certain things. And I'll just be honest, depending on what age you are in the dating game, I'd say if you're over 35, over 40, these should be things that, you should feel more comfortable bringing up anyway.
Hmm.
We'll talk about all the other reasons where people, I'm sure we're going to talk about why some people feel you shouldn't, but here's the deal. We talk about sex and we ask about sex. We ask about sexual partners because we want to see what the likelihood is of, is this somebody that I should be with? Is this somebody who's more into sex than into a relationship? We ask all those things because we're saying we're being responsible. We're being responsible by talking about sex. We're being responsible by seeing if they've had their HIV testing or their STD test, and we say we're being, safe because we want to make sure that we know who we're laying down with. But the mental is affecting you too. Some of y'all are dealing with people who are completely clean in STD land, but now you got to change locks, you got to change phone numbers, you got to leave cities, you got to leave whole homes because they were crazy. So let's talk about that. Let's keep an open mind and really, really, really dig into why this is so important, because your personal safety and your mental safety should be just as important as your sexual safety. So I'm
Yes.
I'm ready.
That is absolutely correct, and thank you. If you're talking for weeks or months before the date when you have an indication of their mental health, not always. Some people are so driven or so, right now I can't think of the right word, but they're so much into their mental illness that they use that as a crutch. They use it as a way to get them in, to get what they want. And they are very good at masking what's going on mentally because they've done it so many times. And it's just like sometimes we don't know what signs to look for. Sometimes we don't know what flags to be aware of to get an indication that something is going on. So sometimes it's not always easy to just, oh, it's something wrong with him. It's not that easy. If it was that easy, you would know from the first day, from the first few phone calls. Um, Chris, I hate the whole thought of dating. Build friendships until there's a spark. Save the dating for marriage. I'm not gonna necessarily agree with that, but I respect your opinion. I mean, dating is what it is. Some people's definitions of dating may not necessarily be the same as yours. And, for them, it's a elimination process. If you're not good enough, if you can't get past the dating phase, then there's no point in even going beyond that or getting deeper into it. Crazy people never tell you they're crazy. Pretty much. Pretty much. Ain't nobody finna just come out and say, hey, I'm dealing with this and this and this, and I dealt with that and blah, blah, blah. No. Sometimes you just have to ask. But I don't think it's a negative thing to ask because just like you want to know, they don't, they can either answer you or not answer you. That's completely up to them. And if they think you're crazy for asking, then maybe you don't need to be talking to them, or maybe they are trying to hide something. That should be a sign for you. And it's just like we have to pay attention to those things, or either ask in subtle ways. Like ask them about the relationship with their family, with their mom, with their dad, and see what their response is. And if they kind of skate over, well, she my mama, and it's just like that's all you got to say about your mom. Like you can tell from responses kind of like whether that might be, it may be something there or maybe not, or not necessarily something there, but just something you need to take a mental note of and be like, okay, let me tuck that away. But let me keep eating and having a good time and drinking. And I women, don't act like y'all don't know how to get the information y'all want without just coming right out and asking it. Come on now. Come on now. Y'all can find out what y'all really want to know. But and again, shout out again to Miss Nubia Soul Goddess for being on Soul Therapy Radio with me earlier, which after the show, we had a good time, and she brought up a really good point about sometimes it's not always about us having this conversation beforehand for me and you, but think about those people that have children involved. You want to always make sure that your children are around the right people, or that you have the right people around your children, because you need to know these things so that you can make sure that your child is going to be safe. And I'm going to leave that right there and go ahead and let Allison chime in since she's a mother, and I would like her input on that part specifically.
Okay.
Everything else, but make sure you chime in on that part.
Okay, definitely. Let me see here. Shout out to Edna, to Ricky, Arlen, Lakeisha. Shout out to Red. I always skip the first date and hit it straight to the last date. That's interesting, Red. If you don't mind putting a little more input into that, would you let me know what you're talking about? Let us know. What's up, Tommy? Um, Jerry, Jennifer, Coronado, Melvin, Eric. Oh boy, there's a lot of y'all. Sherry, Frank, Ray, Carlos. Good to see you guys. Um, so let's just get the elephant out of the room, because I know I'm picking up the different energy concerning what Ruby is talking about. So let's just get the elephant out of the room. Okay, so yes, there are going to be people who are going to lie to you on an initial date if you ask them about mental health. Mm-hmm. Yes, there are people who, crazy people aren't going to tell you they're crazy, because here's the thing, crazy people don't know they're crazy. So we're not talking about we're not just talking about the Hannibal Lecter, Silence of the Lambs type nonsense. That's not what we mean. What we're speaking about is someone who has mental health issues related to trauma, related to childhood things that they haven't dealt with, related to old wounds, whatever. You can have a mental health issue from being a rape survivor. You can have a mental health issue from having a history of molestation or rape in your childhood. So what we're talking about are those different things. And no, those specifically when you're dealing with people who have dealt with sexual trauma that was personal, they're not going to share that with everybody. Mm-hmm. So that part is understood. No, nobody's going to come out on the first date and tell you that they were molested. No, we expect that, unless it's someone who is maybe they're an advocate, maybe they speak about it quite a bit, like with me talking about my domestic violence attack when I was married. I'm very open about that. So yeah, someone could ask me about that on the first date, and because of the fact that I've talked about it on videos, that's not going to be a big deal. Mm-hmm. But what we are saying is the issue, some type of question, it still needs to come up.
Right.
Not necessarily, like Ruby said, not necessarily, you meet somebody at a coffee shop and y'all decide to sit down and have coffee and you have no previous connection with each other. That's not what we're saying. What we are saying is, at the moment that you have also decided that it's okay to talk about sex, you may want to start to learn a little bit more about the person. And it's just as simple as that. Just, start asking them about themselves. Start picking up certain things that, where you can pick up that they may have a particular issue. And again, this is after a rapport has been established, after conversations have been had and stuff like that. Um, in terms of single motherhood, as a single mom, I absolutely positively want to know these things. Now, because of the way that I tend to date, the way that I've put it out into the universe, and the way that it actually comes across to me, I can't think of a time that I've gone out with somebody that I haven't had a rapport with first.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it be maybe they were one of the few to approach me the correct way in my inbox, and we developed a rapport there, or there's someone that I spoke a lot to who maybe participates in my Facebook lives a lot, until the point that I don't know them, of course, but I feel like I've gotten an idea of them. Or maybe we got a shared hobby that we've done quite a bit together, and then they finally decide to see if we can turn that corner. So I've never not had a situation where I've dated someone that I didn't have a rapport with already.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, there were ways that I could ask, tell me about your family, or maybe we already had that in a conversation. So by the time we got to the date, I was able to dig a little bit more into that. They were also able to dig a little bit more into that with me. And I think it's very important that we think about that. We're not just talking from the standpoint of you seeing if there is a previous history of trauma or mental health with them. They have the right to ask you the same questions. You may have a history of trauma. You may have, and it's completely okay for people who have watched my videos or whatever to say, okay, so tell me how you got through this process. Tell me how you got through this thing that you talked about. Tell me how you got through this situation that you talked about, because they justifiably want to make sure, am I really who I say I am when I'm on live, or
Mm-hmm.
is that just an alter ego? So it can go both ways. As a single parent, as a mother, I'm 100% vigilant on asking those questions. And, I also do practical things as well, like no one knows where I live. I don't give out my address. I don't meet people where I live, because if they do turn out to be stalkers, or the relationship ends and they're not ready for it to be over, I don't want my son affected by that. So you don't need to know where I stay. You
Right.
don't need to know any of those things. So I make sure that I have those walls built up out of, precaution and just overall maturity, of course. But as a mom, I do want to see, and I'll just give an example. If I deal with a person that I know has if I'm picking up whole energy, and it's no offense to anybody, I'm not talking about the fact if you just like to go out and sleep with a lot of women, and I'm talking from that standpoint because I date men. If you like to sleep with a lot of women, that's not a problem. That's who you choose to be. I haven't signed up to be part of the roster, so it doesn't do me any, it's not hurting me either way.
Mm-hmm.
But if I pick up that there's a history of trauma with him and his mother, if I pick up that there's an issue with him and his mother that has not been addressed in him, and I pick up certain things that he may say about women, I pick up certain attitudes that he may feel about women, what that lets me know, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's all his mother's fault or all his fault. It means whatever issues are there have not been addressed, and he's projecting them outwardly. Number one, I don't want to be a new target, but more importantly, you're not going to be around my son teaching him how to hate women either.
Right.
So that's a mental health thing as well. We're not just talking about, the typical stereotypes of mental health. We're talking about people who have hurt that has not been addressed, that has infiltrated several areas of their life, their mindsets, their perspectives, their behaviors. It's important that you know those things. And so
Right.
I hope that I addressed that the way you want it,
Of
Ruby.
course. Chris says, I know I'm weird, but people lie hide too much during the dating process. They wear faces. It doesn't do me a lot of good to interview folk who good at interviews, but I'm enjoying the wisdom. And then Tate says the internet has
Mm,
made dating very difficult. People create these illusions. Well, thank everybody for tuning in to Soul Sunday with Ruby and Allison. And tonight's topic is the mentality of relationships, where we're talking about dating, well, relationships in general, and mental illness, emotional illness, mental health, that kind of thing. It's not one thing. Like Allison
mm-hmm,
said, we're not just talking about people dealing with depression and anxiety, but mental unhealthiness, which can be a
mm-hmm,
variety of
mm-hmm,
things. Um,
mm-hmm.
I definitely don't want to date someone that I work with. Yeah. Um, that's for some people, but
Mhm.
we you have to get to the point. Like I said, dating for everybody is not the same. For example, I use
Mhm.
myself. I've gotten to a point in the way I date. I'm very careful about the people that I choose to date because I'm very much an energy person. And because I am where I am in my journey, my personal journey, as far as enlightenment and spirituality and things like that, I connect with certain people. And now I'm to the point where I connect with people that are genuine because I am genuine. And I really don't run into a problem where I feel like I'm interviewing, people that I'm dating or anything like that. I can almost tell immediately if this person is somebody that I can genuinely connect with or if not. And from jump, I can, weed that out very quickly. So, of course, dating, it's a process. It takes some work. It takes some getting used to figure out what it is that you really want without having to go through a lot of people like weeks and months. Like, you know what, he was cool, but nah, it didn't work out. You know what, she was cool, but nah, that didn't work out. And it's just like you get to a point where you can you will pretty much get to a point where you only connect with people that you will genuinely connect with, and then that weeds all that out. But again, thank you everybody for tuning in and thank you all for engaging. The internet has made dating very, very difficult. People create these illusions. Yeah, but y'all gotta learn to see past the illusions. Don't act like the internet just came out. The internet been out for years, and y'all know how to identify people when they're real, when they're not real, and whatnot. And why are you trying to connect with everybody on the internet anyway? I'm just saying, just go out and meet people. Still socialize with people outside of social media. Then that way they can't deny what you can't deny what that connection is. But now I want to kind of move away from just like regular relationships or just meeting, new relationships to these marriages.
Mhm.
Marriages. People, there are some people right now who are 10, 15, and 20 years into a marriage dealing with an individual that has been dealing with some type of mental or emotional unhealthiness or illness, and it may not be going exactly the way they thought it would go, but because they've invested so much time, because they don't want to start over, for a number of reasons, people are still in these
Mhm.
relationships. Look, and I can guarantee you, if they could go back and do it again, and if they found out beforehand what they would have been dealing with, they probably wouldn't be together. They
Right.
probably wouldn't be together. And that's one thing that you have to, like I said, consider. If you at the beginning, you meet somebody and y'all hanging out and whatever, and you figure out that there's something going on, and you don't trust that into your intuition is telling you red flag, girl, what you doing, red flag, you need to back up, you need to back up, you need to slow down. But you no, he this and he that, and we connect like this because trust me, shout out again to Miss Nubia Soul Goddess. She was open about, her relationships and her marriages. And she was like, had she known, she wouldn't have taken that next step into marriage. And it's just like, this is
Mhm.
another reason why we need to have these conversations early on in the relationship. And if you feel like you intruding on somebody's life, then it's just like, why are you there anyway? Pretty much getting into a relationship with somebody is intruding on their life just in a positive way, in a different way. But you need to know what you're working with, Allison. I'm gonna stop right there.
So, all right. So here's the way. Here's the way that I want to take it. So, it is important. I want to touch on the intuition part first.
Mm-hmm.
So, whether brother, sister, whoever is watching right now, I want all of you to think back to either the relationship you're trying to get out of, the relationship that you're realizing isn't going the way you want it to go currently, the relationship that you may be healed from. I want you to think back to that relationship that was just not good. And I want you to, think about those flashbacks, because we all have them. We all have those flashbacks when we get out of a relationship and we can finally get clear-headed enough to see it from the outside in, or when we're in the middle of one and we're finally able to see that it's not as healthy as we wanted it to be. But we always have these flashback moments. We always have these moments where we think about something they said and we realize that it had a bigger meaning than we thought at the time. Or we think about a particular time where we started to think, you know what? I had a feeling back then and I didn't say anything and I should have. We've all had that moment. And so the reason that I want to bring up that moment is to say this. When it comes to your intuition, it doesn't matter about your religious background. It doesn't matter about your belief system. It doesn't matter at all. We all have an inner knowing. And sometimes that inner knowing, the switch is so faint that we don't think it's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
But we always end up going back to that switch when we realize, okay, at that moment, this is exactly what happened. I thought it was this, but it was actually a prelude to ABCD. Now, of course, hindsight is 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And in addition to that, I'm also one of those people, while I do agree with Ruby that as you become more aware, you do start to, attract more genuine people. I also know that genuine people, you can't be responsible for everyone that you attract. You have to be responsible for who you entertain.
Mm-hmm.
And so, having said that, it's important to understand that, yes, to some extent, someone's personal trauma, personal frustrations, whatever, that trauma, it is something that, is personal to them. And, just playing devil's advocate, if I'm having a mental health issue, why would I tell everybody I'm dating? I don't want everybody in my business. I don't want everybody that I know to know that I've been molested if it's not something that I openly talk about. I don't want everybody that I go out with to know that I had a history of abuse. I don't want all those people to know that, because that's going to be the moment where when I tell those people those things, that's me opening up. That's me letting down a guard. We get that. We get that. We completely understand that. What we're saying is, in some ways, and I'll just say it like this. One person that I dated, I am 100% sure I know more about that person than anyone else that they have dated. But one of the reasons that I believe I know that is, number one, because I asked questions, and I didn't ask them in an intrusive way. I didn't ask them as an interrogation. I didn't do that, but I made it clear that I was aware that those issues are out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I also brought it up in a way where that person also knew, if you are dealing with that issue, I'm not going to be one of the people to do this, peace out, and move forward. I do want to know a little bit more. So there's a way to ask these questions, but you ultimately have to make sure that you at least plant the seed.
Mm-hmm.
At least plant the seed so that you know exactly what this person is dealing with, and understand that person may have some trauma they don't want to tell you about. And to be honest, they don't know you. Molestation, for an example, if their own mother and father molested them sexually and touched them inappropriately and affected them in such a personal way, they're not going to trust everybody, and they're not going to tell everybody what's going on. And that's just something that, has to be dealt with. But if you and that person have a genuine connection, if you have right intentions, if you're looking for more than just a one night stand or somebody to pay your bills or somebody to look good on your arm, that person, something in them is going to pick up on that.
Right.
And while they may not answer the question immediately, if you continue to show that you are consistently that person and that you are genuinely that person will begin to share certain things and open things up and let you in. Now, make sure you're prepared for it.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that you're in for the long haul. Make sure you're not just there just to see if the person will trust you and open up, just so you can say you've won that race or that game. Make sure you're ready for it, but understand that you can't be prepared for what you don't know, and you can't address what you're not aware is there. You can't address it. You can't prepare for it. You can't prevent it. And, you have to be more diligent on that. It can't just be, we never have people say it's too soon to talk about sex. We never hear people say it's too soon to talk about affection. It's too soon to ask about marriage. We never have that conversation, but you have to understand that, it's easy to have sex. The easier someone can sleep with you, that's telling you the value they place on sex as a whole. You get somebody that wants to get to know you, wait it out, won't do certain things until they're in a certain stage of a relationship. They're telling you that they value sex. Someone that can just hit it, quit it, flip it, move it, twist it, whatever, they're willing to do that on the first date. They are telling you, they're telling you two things. I'm just saying, they're telling you two things. You may not want to hear it, but the two things they're telling you are, I place no value on sex connected to my emotions. And number two, they're telling you, I want you to stay as far away from my feelings as possible. So let me blow your back out so that you're so focused on orgasms that you don't want to get to know who I am, because I don't want you that close. I'm just saying, keep that in mind. So when we talk about mental health, this is where intimacy can begin. This is where she's still laughing at me. This is where intimacy can start. This is where intimacy can begin. If you get to a point where you feel comfortable
Yes,
enough to
girl,
ask
I'm
that
so sorry. I
question.
do not mean to interrupt you, but yes, Tate. Tate knew exactly why I was laughing. Wait, I thought
Oh
about that
boy.
song. Then
Yeah,
I
the
thought
BBD
about
reference.
Missy Elliott,
Oh my gosh.
"Twerk It," some Friends, whatever that song is by Missy Elliott.
Oh my
Girl, I was
God.
about to start twerking
I
like, yeah. I'm sorry, but yes,
Yes, y'all, that's what I said it. I did. Yeah, the BBD reference, my bad. But what I'm saying is, if you are seeking true intimacy, I'll close it like that. If you are seeking true intimacy begins with trust and vulnerability, not sex, not orgasms.
yes,
These mental health questions, asking about this person's past, asking about this person's pain, and you giving off the energy that lets them know that it's a safe place to do that, that's where your intimacy begins. If you are looking for something serious,
yes.
you need to listen to this message. So I'll stop there.
Yes, thank you everybody for tuning in to Soul Sunday with Ruby and Allison. We are discussing the mentality of relationships. And yes, but
Mm,
everything that Allison said, everything that I've said is where we need to start moving to some degree. We're not saying just go jump out there and start tomorrow. Hey, what you got going on? What you dealing with? No, we're not talking about that.
mm-hmm,
This type of topic or this specific topic that we're talking about pretty much is addressing something that we haven't addressed in the past. And so, because it's something that we've never really addressed, we don't really know how to approach it going forward. Our parents didn't share it with us because think about it. When you are young and you're talking about, oh, I want my mate, you start making this list. He got to be this tall. He got to have this amount of money. He got to be this. He got to be ambitious. He got to be honest. He got to be trustworthy.
mm-hmm,
It's not
mm-hmm.
often that you look at somebody's list, back in the day saying he has to be mentally stable. He has to be an effective communicator. You don't see those things on the list. And it's like, why are things like that not on the list? Because our
Right.
parents didn't tell us that's important. What our parents told
Mm-hmm,
us was important was stability, stability
mm-hmm.
financially, stability, in that sense. And it's just like,
Yeah.
because that's what the focus was, we don't know how to have, first of all, we don't even know how to bring up the conversation of mental illness or emotional illness in general when we talking to friends, when we talking to family. But to try and bring it up now that you somewhat interested in this person and you don't want to run them off and all of this kind of stuff, yes, that's an added layer of difficulty to have this conversation. But if you never start having these conversations, it's never going to get easier. And it's just like, so at what point do you start having these conversations? Like, so you just going to keep putting it off because it's not comfortable. Look, I tell anybody all the time, a comfort zone ain't nothing but coping. You go to a comfort zone when you don't want to grow, when you don't want to learn something new, when you don't want to deal with what's uncomfortable. You need to get used to it because at this particular point in time, with there being an increase in murders that are associated with mental wellness, I know last year we saw a few situations where, you know, the guy killed the girl because she broke up with him. She didn't want to be with him anymore. And he was dealing with something mentally. And I know they got hundreds of episodes of Snapped and all of those other shows where people don't
Yeah.
deal with this stuff and they just snap. And it's just like, I ain't trying to be on no episode of Snap. So I need to know what's going on. So I'm going to ask at some point in time, whether it's subtle, whether I just come out and say, look, such and such happened. What's really going on? You just tell me.
Hmm.
Because you know I ain't going to do nothing to you and I don't want you doing nothing to me. But I feel like we need to have this conversation. Especially if you over there backing it up, flipping it, rubbing it down, and all this other kind of stuff. Have the conversation during that time. You know, everybody say everything during that time.
And they do.
Get it out there. I'm just saying.
Oh my God. It's the truth though. It's the truth.
Y'all, look,
It's
we try to make this, we try to have serious conversations but have fun at the same time. That's pretty much what this
right.
is. But I'm just
Right.
saying,
Right.
if he can say he love you in the heat of the moment, say, baby, you know, when such and such was going on, what was that about? And he might just open up and say, girl, you know what? And y'all can have this dialogue. You know, I'm just saying.
It's possible. It is always possible.
Yes. Just, you know, just don't say the wrong thing and yeah, everything, yeah, you don't want that to happen. I'm just saying. Yeah, being with crazy people is far more uncomfortable. Exactly.
Mhm.
These new dudes and some of these old punks can't take rejection. Look, men ain't been able to take rejection for a long time. I'd have been called ugly, skinny, and some of everything ever since I was little. Ever since, let me not say little, just younger, when I was like in high school
Mhm.
and stuff like that. What do y'all think about dating men that have been to jail in their past? Um, I don't think it's a bad thing at all. The only thing that, just like you have to get to know any person that hasn't been to jail, spend time with them, see what they're really about, same situation. Because I know men that have been to jail and they're really good men. They take care of their family, they take care of their children. And sometimes going to jail is not like they murdered somebody or anything like that. It could be, hey, they were young and they made a mistake and they've learned from it. Tate,
Whatever,
whatever,
Tate.
Tate. Look, I'm skinny thick. Don't knock it. Okay.
Oh my God. Oh
Anyway,
my God.
Allison, I'm gonna go ahead and let you chime in.
uh, there's so many of y'all that came on. It's probably gonna take me 2 minutes to say hello. So just
Hey,
thank all of
everybody.
y'all, everyone, everybody who's a Soul Sunday fan, everybody who's a Ruby D artistry fan, everyone who's an Allison Denise fan. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this topic. We're talking about uh, mental health and relationships. And so, just to answer the question that Amber gave, being institutionalized definitely impacts the psyche. Okay, so my stance on dealing with someone who has a previous record is similar to Ruby's. I don't think that a person's past necessarily means that they're always going to be bad. Now, some of the things that I do, however, and I'm aware that I may not get the real answer if I ask them up front, so I just usually sit back and I wait. I want to see how they walked away from that situation. I want to see if they're willing to talk about how they got into that situation. I want to see if they're, what is their body language like when they talk about it? What are the words that they use? If you hear words that talk more about the fact that, accountability and where I was mentally at this time and what led me here, and this is what I did while I was in the pen, and this is what I've done since then you're dealing with someone who made a mistake and it just landed them in prison. It landed them in jail and they had to make a decision and they decided they didn't like it. So they're doing what they need to do to not end up there again. I don't see anything wrong with that. Now, if you end up listening to someone, however, who is constantly talking conspiracy, constantly talking about the world being against them, constantly talking about the blame game, constantly talking about ways to get over on situations where you don't need to do this, you don't need to do that. And I'm just going to be honest, I'm talking to some of these hoteps, HOE teps. I'm talking to some of y'all that are finding you looking for every reason in the world. You want to throw up polygamy when you really are just one of the ones that want more than one ass at night, or you bringing up religion and all this other stuff, or you bringing up how the man is against you. Now, don't get me wrong, power to the people, but I know some of y'all are full of it. Some of y'all are full of it. Y'all are. I love my brothers, but some of y'all, you just want to figure out how to eloquently say that you want more than one wife because you want more sex than one woman can handle, or you just want to come up with a reason to not work. You want to talk about how bad the government is and how everybody don't need licenses this and licenses that because you don't want to commit. Just be real. Be real and say you don't want to commit. Sidebar, I'll move on. So when you're talking about dealing with someone who is institutionalized, find out if they're institutionalized or if they've just been in prison. There's a difference in that mindset. There's a complete difference. Someone who has just been in prison, they have learned, they have grown, they are moving forward. Someone institutionalized is out of prison, but they're still imprisoned in their mind. You can't help that person until they want to be helped. And you definitely can't love that person into wanting to be helped. And that's something that we definitely have to work on, bringing it back to mental health and mental illness. Um, I can't remember who said it. I think it may have been Amber. Amber made a statement about potential and how we have to stop dating that. And that is very true. You can meet someone who is honest. If they're honest about their mental health issues, that's great. But that's the first step. And sometimes we make the mistake of thinking that that's a big step, and it's not.
Mm-hmm.
People can be aware of who they are and not want to change it. You now have to see, does that person want to change? You can't go ahead of them and say, oh, he already knows this, and oh my goodness, we could do A, B, C, and D. No, 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 back
No,
up.
no, no.
Did he say he was doing that? Did he say that he wanted to do A, B, C, and D, or did you just dream it up and now you want to make the reality fit the dream? That's not how this works. So you got to be vigilant. Make sure that you're watching what they're saying to see if that's the truth. Make sure you're seeing what they're saying and making sure it's consistent. And don't make excuses for any time that it deviates. Don't make excuses. Call it out. If it happens again, it doesn't matter if this person has a mental health issue. They have a problem with consistency, and that alone should make it easy for you to kick them to the curb. I'm done.
She's done. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to Soul Sunday with Ruby and Allison. And the topic is the mentality of relationships. So, like I said, we don't expect y'all to go out there starting tomorrow like, hey, calling up all your booze. What's going on? I need to know if you got some mental illness up in there that you not telling me about. I need to know if you got some trauma that you not telling me about.
Mm-hmm.
To start to ease into it, just pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
Just one, decide going forward, you know what? This is something that's important to me, and this is something that I need to start making myself more aware of, and just be open to asking the questions. Not saying go out there and asking, but just pay attention, listen to what they say, pay attention to their actions, and talk about more than just what y'all gonna eat for the day. Talk about more than this bill that got to be paid.
Yeah.
Talk about more than who gonna be on top and who gonna be on bottom tonight. Have some real
Mm-hmm.
conversations that have some substance to them, and just
Absolutely.
and stop ignoring the red flags. Some of y'all clearly know, y'all clearly know something wrong with them, but y'all want to act like, but he love me though. Stop ignoring the red flags. Stop ignoring the red flags. Pay attention. Because trust me, especially if you got kids, you really want to pay attention because, Allison brought it up earlier about molestation. Sometimes when that happens to them, it continues. Something happens and it's something that they continue to do. And you don't
Mm-hmm.
want it to put your child in a situation where they're exposed to that. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this just goes far beyond. you getting into somebody's business or somebody getting all into your business. We have to start looking at having these conversations differently. It's like it's necessary, but it may not be necessary from day one. It's necessary from at the point you decide that you may want to spend the rest of your life with this person, or you may want to seriously date this person. And it's just like you need to know what they're dealing with. And if you don't have any kids, then you need to know potentially what your child may have to deal with moving forward. There are fathers that have birthed children or, have conceived children with the woman and they still do things to their own child. And you're like, how can you do that to your own child? Like, that's your seed. But it's up here. And sometimes some people just never know that. You never know, but you got to get to the point where you start knowing, where you start caring enough to even want to know. And it's unfortunate that
Right.
it's a lot of people out there that don't even care enough asking, like, should I really ask that? Or should you not ask it? Like, why would you not?
Right.
Allison, you dealing with some stuff. Me and Allison just friends. I need to know what she got to deal with because some she might be dealing with. I'll be like, look, I can't help you with that. I can still be your friend. I can still be
Right.
your tribe sister, but that right there, I don't know now.
Yeah. Yeah.
We gonna have to work on that. But I'm just saying,
Right.
we
Yeah.
do have, oh yeah, we got a few comments. I'm sorry, I was just talking.
Hmm.
Um, Let me see. Say it louder for the hoteps in the back. That's why I started laughing. Some just keep repeating the self laying there responsible on one another, which is not cool. Some are happy to be with someone regardless of the situation being toxic. Unfortunately, I love your energy. Do you belong to anyone?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Now they are so desperate to be with someone that they are willing to be gay for convenience. Tate, what you watch? I'm playing. Thank you for your engagement, Tate. Misty, I shy away from men who overdrink alcohol. Those that are partying it up to 7 days a week. I feel like they are trying to numb the hurt of something they have been through. Exactly, and that's what I'm saying. To
Yeah.
you, you pay attention to that because it's just like, why is this person drinking so much? And what is it?
Right.
And that's what I'm saying. It's not about you just coming out and asking the questions, but just taking note of things that catch your attention and making a
Right.
mental note of it.
Hmm.
Allison, go ahead.
Yeah, let me say this. And I forgot what brother it was. I can't get back to his comment, but he made a comment about people who have been incarcerated can change, and he's 100% right. I don't want anyone to leave here thinking that we believe otherwise. I have proof. Ruby has proof. We know that there are people who can be incarcerated that can change. That's not what we're talking about, though. Just because there are some who can does not mean that we need to ignore the fact that there are some who don't. And it's the ones who don't that do cause more pain and more heartache. And we've got to be aware that those people do exist.
Mm-hmm.
We just have to. So I just wanted to put that out there. Now, having said that, let's talk about let me just say it this way. Surface love never sustains. It doesn't work. So what I mean by that is, unless you are both people who are just so focused on having what you think other people have and going through the motions in your relationship, your marriage, whatever, there is always going to be a disconnect between someone who wants to love real and someone who wants to love surface.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're talking about now is related to the mental health issues, or acknowledgement of past trauma. This is when you are dealing with someone who wants to love real. They want to love all of you. They want to love the good, the bad, the ugly. Now, they don't want to coddle you. They don't want to enable you, but they do want to love you. So when you have people who ask these questions, if they happen to ask them of you, take notice of why they're asking, take notice of the words they're using, take notice of how they're asking. If they're asking in a really arrogant, uh, defensive, interrogative tone, no, I'm not going to tell you. I'm just going to be honest. If somebody were to come to me and say, so are you one of those chicks that's been raped and now you don't know how to trust men? You're not getting jack out of me. Not nothing, because you're letting me know that you're insensitive.
Mm-hmm.
So if you happen to be someone who says, hey, I listened to when you talked about A, B, C, or D, and it's been on my mind for a while, but I just felt like it wasn't appropriate to ask. But now I'm just wondering if you feel like talking about it. That might be an opportunity where I may open up.
Mm.
I'm just giving you ideas of how to ask and how to know when to answer. So when we're talking about this, understand, number one, not everyone needs to know, but you have to be willing to see the difference between who needs to know and who you need to leave alone.
Right.
Because if you're not willing to share that information with you, that's because something in you does not trust them. And if you don't trust them, why are you there? Move on.
That's correct.
It's not, that's not hard. Now, beyond that, when we're talking about asking these questions and intuition and stuff like that, you have to also understand things can go along great. But when you see that first hiccup, you don't necessarily have to throw the whole relationship away, but you don't throw the hiccup away either. You can't throw the hiccup away. You got to say, okay, this is a hiccup. Let's address it.
Right.
And that's where you find out, like Ruby said when she brought up the list, when we're talking about stability, and well, we want stability and we want this and we want that. You have to also understand relationships need trust, communication, vulnerability, and honesty, all of them. And you don't find out if you have those things when times are good. You don't find those things out until there's a hiccup or a challenge or whatever. The relationships or the dating, I'll say this, the dating experiences that I've had, if they're not working in a lot shorter of a time frame than they did when I didn't want to speak up or when I didn't want to bring up something that I saw. The minute I see something, I watch. I'm doing better. I used to, for a while I was one striking you out. I ain't worried about two and three. Now it's between 1.5 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
But I will bring it up. It's the truth. I'll bring it up and I'll say, hey, you know, ABCD has occurred and you are not responsible for healing any damage that was done before I met you, but I won't go through it again. So I'm letting you know ABCD, can we address it?
Right.
Those people either addressed it or they didn't, or they addressed it and did the same thing. And once the person shows me that for whatever reason, what they're doing, they're comfortable doing, but it's hurting me, I gotta go. And that's something I really want my sisters to understand. If you have spoken to the brother that you're dealing with and they are continuing to do the same thing, it's not necessarily about them disrespecting you so much as they are comfortable doing it. It's not necessarily that they want to hurt you, they're just okay doing it. So you got to be okay with the fact that they're okay doing something that doesn't work for you and moving forward. My brothers, same thing with these sisters. And you got to be careful with the ones who are ready to put it on you immediately. A lot of y'all are walking around whipped by women that don't mean you no good. And the minute they figure out that you're almost onto them, they whip it on you again. Or they'll add another woman, or they'll add another second woman. You got to be mindful of that. You got to get to the point where you don't let that head blind you from what this head is seeing. It's going both ways. It's not always about our sisters not knowing, not paying attention to the actions of brothers. A lot of my brothers, y'all are being dealt worse hands because you're letting sex be the reason that you stay. You're
Mm.
letting sex be the reason that you hang around. You're letting sex be the reason that you're ignoring when she tells you that she don't want you around nobody but her, and she means it. She mean nobody. Your mama, your family, your friends, your kids, your job. She is serious. She wants all of your time and you ignoring it because she's putting it on you. And I know some brothers personally, they ignored her one too many times and they came out to some jacked up cars and she's showing up at the job in her drawers outside, ready to beat up every woman. Y'all got to be more
Oh,
vigilant. You got to get to the point where you say, she the bomb in bed, but I can't do it. You got to do it.
girl.
So I'm going to stop there.
Look, and with you saying that, y'all, we got to get past this thing. Oh, you think it's cute. Oh, he loved me. Oh, she loved me.
That part. That part.
Just because they love you don't mean it's healthy. You need to let that go and stop
Mm-hmm.
making excuses. Chris says, if I fall in love without being aware of a person's past trauma because it was hid, and then found out later on, should I be held responsible for nurturing those wounds? And did I fall in love with the real them, or was I deceived? No, you're
Mm,
not responsible to nurture anything. You're not responsible for their healing. That's all them. Now, at the time when they bring this to you, you have to decide whether or not you want to continue to move forward or not with them. Everybody's, trauma from one person can look completely different for the next person. It could be something
right.
small that they dealt with, but it just affected them so much based on their level of experience and
Hmm.
understanding. Whereas something completely, that's unfathomable, somebody else has dealt with, and you just really have to decide what you're willing to deal with and what you definitely don't want to deal with. And
Yeah.
it's completely fine for you to voice your opinion to this, not opinion, but voice your choice to the person. And it's just like, I love you, but what you're dealing with at this particular time, I can't do anything with that. And instead of me
Yeah.
being a hindrance with this relationship being in front of what you need to do as an individual, I would rather step back,
Hmm.
let you do what you need to do, and then at that point we can revisit this conversation, and if we decide at that point to come back together, then that is an option that's there.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily that they hid anything from you. They just may not have been comfortable with sharing it with you. Like Allison said, depending on what it is, everybody is not comfortable with just volunteering that information until they feel that you are the person that they want to have that conversation with, or bring you into that part of their life. And at that time,
Hmm.
then you have to also consider, well, have I shown this person that I can be that person that they need? And if I haven't,
Right.
then, what is it with me? Not to say that there's anything that's wrong with you, but it's just like, what am I doing that's making this person feel like they couldn't have come to me with this? So, like I said, it's not necessarily that you are deceived or anything. It's just, it really depends on the situation and the type of relationship that you all have. Um, Let me see. Okay. Now, was I gonna say anything else? I think that was pretty much it. Allison, what you got? You look like you want to say something.
Oh
Yeah,
no, I was
yeah.
just
Wait,
listening.
Allison, I want you to chime in on his question. That's what I wanted.
Okay. Okay, so to answer Chris's question, let me go back and read it. Okay, so if you fell in love without being aware, I read that part. Should I be held responsible for nurturing those wounds? Did I fall in love with the real them, or was I deceived? So here's what my experience has been, Chris. Number one, like Ruby said, no, you're not responsible for that. Um, and even to add on to what Ruby said about that person not feeling comfortable with you, um, while I'm really big on self-reflection, I'm also real big on not trying to take on anything that's not mine. And so while my thing is this, if you run into uh, consistent situations where people are letting you know that you're not easy to talk to or share with, if this is the third or fourth time that someone has hid something from you, I would start to address, am I saying things that cause me to be judgmental, and am I saying things that are causing people to feel like I won't understand? But if it's your first time, I'm gonna tell you not to waste your time wondering what you did. And the reason that I say that is because depending on the trauma, some people just don't want to tell you.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter how open you are. It doesn't matter how caring you are. It doesn't matter how many times they've seen other people share personal things with you and seen you handle them beautifully. Some people just don't want to tell you because in their mind, they have believed that it's they believe that you're either going to see them differently. The voices in their head are saying, if I tell him, he's going to love me differently. If I tell him, he's going to see me just like everybody else does. If I tell, so those aren't things that you can fix, and those aren't things you shouldn't think you should even waste your time thinking about, because it's all internal.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of were you deceived, it's going to depend on how you choose to look at it. Now, if you find out that this person, had a whole husband at home, yeah, you were deceived because she knew she was married. If you
Mm-hmm.
found out that, if you find out those things, that's cool. But if you find out down the line, let's say that you catch her cheating on you. And let's say in the course of you find out she cheated on you, she acknowledges that she's cheated on you 5 other times that you don't know about. Now, let's say 3 months down the line, you have a mutual friend come and tell you that she was gang raped at 5, and all she knows is giving her body away. Now, on one end, yeah, you were deceived because she did cheat on you, but if this was her MO before she met you, she wasn't necessarily deceiving you. She was still being her. You just didn't find out until the end. Does that mean you go back? No, because again, this is where those boundaries come in. You can accept that she has some unhealed wounds that are showing up in her being promiscuous, but if what you want is a faithful woman, she can't be that. It doesn't matter that you understand why she can't be that. She can't be that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we have to do. That is why having these conversations makes so much sense. Number one, because it allows you to let the other person off the hook and understand that they can't meet a particular need that you have. But the second thing is that it also teaches you the power of your boundaries and the power of you remembering that what you want doesn't need to go by the wayside just because you understand why someone is the way they are. It
Right.
gives you the opportunity to say, I get it, but right now, this is what I need. This is what I deserve. This is what I want in my life. And I really want her and I really want him to be that person. But right now, they can't. And it sucks. But now you can walk away without playing the what did I do? What's wrong with me? What was me game? And you can just say, this was before me. This is them. This was an issue long before I stepped into the picture.
Mm-hmm.
They're not ready to address it, and I got to move on and be with in a situation that works for me. So that's how I would look at that.
Yes, and thank you for that. Thank you, Amber. Thank you, Sin, and you're welcome, Chris. Thank you for your engagement. But we're over our time. I'm sorry. This was just a good conversation. That's all that was.
Yes, it was.
But
It was.
but I do want to say this last thing, and then we're gonna wrap it on up. But this particular topic, this is not for your fly by night relationships, fly by night, anything.
Mm-hmm.
This is for those
Mm-hmm.
relationships that you deem special, that you basically feel like you've prepared your whole life for. This is not just for the random Johns and all these random females and stuff like that. No, it's like once you get
Right.
to the point where you feel like, hey, I'm emotionally connected to this person. I did not say attached, there's a difference. But I'm connected to this person. I feel a certain way about this person. And you know what? I want to move forward with this person. This conversation is what you have, or we're having this whole life to say you have these conversations with that person. And you also have to understand that when you love someone, it's not just one dimensional. That's what Allison was saying about surface love. It's just up here and it's just like, it's real shallow. But no, when you are
Mm-hmm.
genuinely in love with somebody, mind, body, soul, spiritually, energetically, emotionally, all of that, then you have to care. At some point, you really have to care, like, do I have to tell this person? Are they important enough to me for me to reveal this information to them? And you
Right.
also have to look at it from the other side. If something was going on with them, would I want them to tell me? Would I want them to make me aware? And it's just
Mm-hmm.
like, of course you would, especially if it's something that that you know they can't handle by themselves. Not to say that you have to take
Right.
on their healing, but if this is something that they've been working to get through, but it's like everybody that they've opened up to has turned their backs on them. Like Allison said,
Yeah.
that can be one reason why they haven't come to you. But you may be that person for them to finally say, okay, let me try this one more time. And then you be that person that
Mm-hmm.
actually helps them because you genuinely love them multidimensionally. And it's just like you can't look don't look beyond that. And just take that into consideration when you're thinking about having these conversations, when you're paying attention to their habits, when you're paying attention to
Right.
how they treat people and how they react with people, even down to how they react with their children
Mm-hmm.
and baby mamas and baby daddies and all of this good stuff. Pay
Yes.
attention to that stuff
Yes.
and stop being shy about having this conversation. If y'all can talk about sex and right curve and hook and from the back and all this extra stuff, why y'all get what I'm saying? Allison, go ahead with your last words.
My last words are, I'm just gonna piggyback on what Ruby says. Sex is surface. Sex is surface in this society. It's easy to talk about the physical part. Physical is easy. Physical is easy to obtain. Physical is easy to access. And a lot of people want you to focus on physical because they don't want you to know how broken they are on the inside. They don't want you to know. And I'll tell you something that nobody wants to hear, including the person about to say it. A lot of the people who are great in bed are great in bed because they have figured out that that's what keeps people away from their hearts.
She said a
They
word.
have figured it out. If I can give it to him right, if I can give it to her right, if I can just keep her coming, if I can just keep him coming, they're not going to care about my heart, which is fine because I don't want anybody near it anyway. So be careful. Be careful. I know it feels good. I know it's great, and a lot of times they're the best sex you've had. But what you have to remember and what you have to think about is the fact that if what you want is real, if what you want is exactly what Ruby talked about, the physical, the spiritual, the emotional, the energetic, if you want all that, it's gonna come with some ugly, y'all. It's gonna come with some ugly. It's gonna come with some mistakes. It's gonna come with some. These are some of the things that I'm not proud of, but I've done them, and it led to me becoming the person that I am. It is not movie. It's not TV movie love. It's not rom-com love. This stuff gets ugly, it gets deep, it gets real. There are situations where you are not responsible for the person healing, but you create the safe space for them to begin healing themselves.
Mm-hmm.
That is sometimes going to happen. Real love is real life. And if you find that you run every time it deviates from a script that you have in your head or what you see on TV or what you wish would happen, if you run, you're running from real. And you will never have real until you're ready to accept that real involves real darkness, real pain, real hurt. And just like you've had hurt and you've had scars and you've had wounds, it's time out for us deciding that we're worth someone working on our wounds, but it's too much work to do it for someone else. You do not have a real relationship without reciprocation. You just don't.
Right.
So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind with this topic as well as any other topic. If you find that all you guys are talking about is what you're going to eat and how good you were in bed that night, y'all are in surface territory. Y'all are not deep enough. You're not deep enough.
Not at all. But this has been Soul Sunday with Ruby and Allison, and the topic is the mentality of relationships. Now, me, Allison does relationship coaching for couples, for engaged people, for single people, for all of y'all. What I do, I'm an
Mm-hmm.
energy therapist, so I do energy work. After she works on the
Mm-hmm.
mental and the emotional part of it, then y'all come talk to me to deal with the energy part of it. The parts that y'all can't
That's right.
quite get under control. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we talked about this and we did that and they've been gone for years and blah, blah, blah. But you need to clear out their energy. Let it go because it
Right.
does not belong to you. That's not yours. And move forward.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I do. And I do that for couples, whether you're in a relationship, single, whatever the case is. Go to Allison
Mm-hmm.
for your coaching and your counseling. Come to me for the energy stuff, the stuff that's non physical.
Right.
But you can find me online at www.thegoddessgrind.com. You can find me on Instagram at Ruby D Artistry. And if you want to book any services, they are affordable for myself and for Allison. You can definitely go find that online as well at thegoddessgrind.com. Allison?
Peace and blessings, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in. You can find me on Facebook right here under Allison Denise. Go ahead and head over to my page, Miss Allison Denise, aka the Petite Powerhouse. That's me. You can also find me on YouTube and Instagram under Miss MS Allison Denise. And feel free to go to AllisonDenise.com and email me at Allison@AllisonDenise.com for any needs that you may have concerning relationship coaching, individual coaching, premarital counseling, anything of that nature. And I'm also available, as is Ruby. We're available for any of your speaking engagements or any keynote addresses that you have in our various levels of expertise.
We sure do. We have had a good time. We will be here next Sunday,
Yes.
9:30 Eastern,
Mm-hmm.
8:30 Central Standard Time. And we're going to talk some more. Trust me, it's going to be an interesting conversation. It's always interesting. But
Always.
we will see you all next Sunday. Make sure y'all tune in. We thank you for the engagement, for the love, for the shares. We'll see y'all next time.
Yes.
Bye bye.
Peace.